Hello and welcome into the latest ESPN FC Live. Happy New Year to all of you. I say ESPN Live, but basically it's just a big PL Express today because there's just myself and Janusz, Michallik here and lots of Premier League football to talk about. So we're not going to wait too long to get into it all, but we will touch later on some transfer wishes now that the January transfer window is open. So Janusz, let's get started with the game that we just saw yesterday. Liverpool with a high energy win over Newcastle. Even though they were totally dominant, it was only in the later stages that they did seal the game. What stood out to you most from Liverpool's performance here and the energy that we saw from them? They've gone 3 points clear at the top of the table.
Well, I think it's just this amazing job that Jurgen Klopp has done so far. You know, when we talk about Manchester United, when we talk about Chelsea, and when we talk about these rebuilds, you can even bring Arsenal, right? It's taken 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how deep you want to go with this. Here's Liverpool after such a disappointing season last year, not making even top 4, where I think we were all ready for and I think we agreed that the rebuild needed to take place. And I bet the fans and pundits would have given Liverpool probably a season or 2 to do that. Well, I'll tell you what, he's doing this on the go. And maybe to everyone's surprise, maybe even Jurgen Klopp, he surprised himself because there's still so many players that I feel underperforming to a degree. And yet here we are. The level of intensity are back. Liverpool is scoring goals. They're difficult to beat. They're defending well, even though, the back four hasn't been the same for how many games, right? I mean, you have Joe Gomez playing a left back, and we know he isn't. We've seen the issues of partnership to Virgil van Dijk, which changes every game. And Liverpool are top of the league. So there's still so much to come because there's a lot of work to do. So it could be frightening if some of these pieces are starting to fall into place for the rest of the season, because look where Liverpool are.
Okay, if they are starting to fall into place. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say something and you're going to say something in response to it. So I say Darwin Núñez, you say?
Very disappointing. Very disappointing. And of course, the pushback is immediate because how much he does without the ball, which he does. I mean, his work rate has been better. It had to be. Remember, he wasn't starting because that inability to counter press immediately, maybe win the ball. Jurgen Klopp has said that before. I mean, he's got so many chances. He wastes so many chances. But then again, you can say, well, but at least he finds himself in those scoring opportunities, sometimes creates for others. So that's all bonuses. But for me, the bottom line, it's he's insufficient technically. He really is. That's part of the reason. He's not clean on the ball. I don't know how much that's going to change. I do give him benefit of the doubt because under Jurgen Klopp, many needed time to come good. So I'm still sort of in his corner. But part of me believes that he's never going to become this consistent, ruthless goal scorer that a team like Liverpool needs. So I am disappointed. Again, in last game, that game should have been over. He had 2, 3, maybe even 4 chances that he needs to put away. But that's been an issue with everybody else, Kay, right? Because probably not the point in here, but we'll probably get to Erling Haaland, and whatever you think of him, there's a reason why he does what he does, because look at everybody else. Nobody, and I repeat, nobody has a striker, number 9, that's even close. And that's why they're paying the price. Chelsea with Nicholas Jackson, even Richarlison with Spurs to a degree, although he's been better. Liverpool with Darwin Núñez, Manchester United with Jan Højlund, Arsenal with Gabriel Jesus. These number 9s are nowhere near to what Erling Haaland is. And that's the bottom line. They have all the money in the world, but they can't crack that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about number 9s in this transfer talk coming up a bit later on. It's a transfer wish list as well, so look forward to that. A couple more just for Liverpool then. I say Diogo Jota penalty, you say?
Absolutely. I don't even know what the brouhaha is. I got on Twitter this morning and I see everybody going crazy, legitimate pundits that I like and respect having to I don't know, apologize, but explain themselves why they thought it was a penalty. I mean, it's as clear as it gets. No issue whatsoever. Unfortunate because it was that elbow, but, there was a contact at that pace. And right away, I'll tell you, yeah, Jota could have stayed up, but he's smart enough to know that maybe that last touch was a little bit long and didn't want to take any chances, but a clear-cut and simple penalty.
Okay, last one for Liverpool, and then I'll just ask you an overall question on them. So I say Mo Salah off to the Africa Cup of Nations. You say
Unfortunate. I just mentioned Darwin Nunez. He needs 4 chances to score a goal. Now, if he continues to do that and he scores at important times, and those are game-winning goals, then who cares, even if it's 10 chances? But very often, as we've seen, that's not the case. You look at the games at home against Arsenal and Manchester United, you look at overall, those are big games, but big points lost as well. So, and with Mo Salah, it's not just the fact that he scores goals, but it's what has he got? 8 assists. I mean, he creates a lot, even if it's not a final assist for a goal. I mean, so much goes through him. I think Mo Salah is smart, and with age, he knows that he had to change his game, because he has changed his game. I mean, he does score goals, but I don't think this is the Mo Salah at his best few years back, where you remember where we were just oohing and ahhing because he'd beat 3 or 4 players in the phone booth and score a great goal. He doesn't do that. I don't know if he can do that, but he's found other ways to score goals and be very important for his teams, because without him, this is a totally different Liverpool team. So it's good that Jota came back. It's good that Jota continues to do what he's done before the injury, which is score consistently or be involved in goal-scoring situations consistently. But I think this front 4 or 5 of Liverpool has underperformed tremendously. If you put Luis Diaz into it and Gakpo, and forget the goals yesterday, but in general, as many attacking players as they have, when you put them all together, they're still far away from Mo Salah.
All right, let's move on, in fact, because I'm going to save the last question about Liverpool to bunch it up with the next team that we're going to talk about. It's going to be Arsenal, because obviously we've just seen back-to-back losses now. And obviously the last time you and I spoke was before Christmas, and we were having a bit of fun with one another, because you'd said ahead of the show that you felt that you were ready to say it now. And then as the show went on, you said, okay. And we pushed you a little bit on it, and we were asking you if Arsenal were title favourites with everything that was going on now. Well, now we're just a few match days later. This has happened. Is there any reason for you to think that this is more than a blip?
Yes, because they're tired. I still think, and I'll repeat what I said before. I mean, both Arsenal and Liverpool are contenders, because I haven't seen Manchester City the way I saw them last year. Not even close. And not being close may be good enough, but this is not yet the Manchester City where we can say, wow, what favorites. Last season, you and I were saying that they're super favorites, not just to win the Premier League, but to win the Champions League. And now you can't say the same. In 2-3 weeks' time, maybe, but not just yet. For Arsenal, I just think they're paying the price for lack of depth. It's as simple as that. And you and I have talked about Eddie Nketiah. When he was scoring a few goals here and there, everybody says, "Oh wow!" But forget just Eddie Nketiah. There's just not enough on that bench, and they're paying the price for playing the same team. But remember, this time is different, because this time they're playing in the Champions League. And although they've done well winning their group, it takes a lot. And you see Saka and Martinelli playing all the time. Gabriel Jesus, when he's available, not the same fullbacks. I think the fullback situation is very, very important, because Ben White is nowhere near being the same. Zinchenko on and off. Poor Kivior, obviously playing always out of position and being asked to play inverted in the midfield. That's not what he knows how to play. He's still young, hasn't learned that. So, I mean, there are many circumstances, but this team looks knackered, looks tired, and Saka is not the same. He'll turn it back. He's a great player, but I think this is exactly what's happening at this moment. But you know what? Again, going back to what I said, they'll push Manchester City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, because again, these teams are too good just to fall away from the might of Manchester City this season. Just my gut feeling.
Okay, so who'll push them harder, Arsenal or Liverpool?
I think as it stands, you have to say Liverpool, because of the depth. Everybody's getting back, aside from the fact that they will miss Mo Salah. Second part is because there's still so much you can get out of that midfield. It's functional, but it's not great yet. And look what they've been able to accomplish. But third, and perhaps the most important, is the know-how, because Liverpool know how to challenge Manchester City. They know how to beat Manchester City. They've done it before. They've pushed him to the brink on a couple of seasons. That one season we all remember by 1 point, and then of course winning it. So that experience goes a long way. And Pep Guardiola knows that I mean, knows. I mean, to a degree, and I don't know that, but he fears Jurgen Klopp in Liverpool more than he feels Mikel Arteta, because he knows that Mikel Arteta plays the same way as he does, right? That's where he's learned his trade. So it's a little bit easier, I think, to read Arteta and Arsenal.
All right. It's interesting because the two face each other, obviously, in the FA Cup coming up at the weekend. So we'll get a little look at how Arsenal fare against Liverpool there and what we can take from that. But we've got to talk about Manchester United. It's New Year and it's the same old topic that keeps coming up. Is it time for a new manager? And obviously, we keep getting told, well, it's just that who's going to come in. It's just not the time. There's a lot of change going on at this club. But what do you think of what's going on there right now? And like, how much longer can we keep asking this until we do say, well, maybe despite everything that's going on around it, it is time for a change?
I've said it even when United had a win here and there, because you look at the table, it's not all that bad. But I've lost trust in Ten Hag. These players are not responding. There's a bigger issue, and I don't want to get into the guts, because the positive is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is in. We'll see what he has in mind. It's going to be very difficult to pull anything big for the rest of the season, but I do believe that they just need an idea. They need to return to what Manchester United once was, right? This is patchwork. What we see here is complete patchwork. And although I agree with Ten Hag that once you start recovering some of the key players, things get better. And maybe there's going to be a late push for the top four. But without a major change within the way United play, and maybe the sort of players that they look for, I think if they were to stay with Ten Hag next season, you're going to have more of the same. This team has a non-competitive attitude. It started with the manager. Look, I mean, I've been singing his praises last season, but every game now, I see that there are limitations there. There's a lot of talk on his part, but I don't see the players executing this. As I said, the competitive edge is absolutely not there. And that's the biggest issue for me, because you look at Manchester United, there was an aura about this team. There is zero aura about Manchester United. Every team in this league feels that they can beat Manchester United home and away. There's no aura at Old Trafford whatsoever. I don't think that they're favored. I mean, I don't remember last time where I truly felt that Manchester United were favorites to win a game at home or away. Don't remember.
Wow. So even with players to come back, obviously you've got the likes of Lisandro Martinez, Maguire, Casemiro. Even with these players coming back, do you think that will change anything?
Yes, it'll get better. I mean, you'll get some results. I mean, good players will give you that. I think Lisandro Martinez can help. We've seen him do that. But I think in general, when you look at the makeup of this team, some of the older players, I mean, Johnny Evans still, maybe because he has to, but I mean, he's been given praises, rightfully so. But it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be in a position where Johnny Evans plays such an important role for a team like United. Harry Maguire, Manchester United, come on. I mean, even at his best, okay, better than he was when he was struggling, and I'm very, very happy for him. But Manchester United aren't going to be fighting for Premier League title or Champions League title where they want to be and where they perhaps belong, right? Historically, that's not going to happen. Rafael Varane, I love him, but I see that Real Madrid, and they're missing a lot of central defenders. Maybe they can ship him over there. Casemiro, you're not going to get much out of him. Luke Shaw, serviceable, and if he comes back to a form that we've seen last season, okay, who else is there? I mean, even when those players come back and play at their best, this is still Manchester United that's not going to be fighting for the biggest titles. It's just not going to happen.
Well, the other team in Manchester is definitely fighting for the biggest titles. They just cruised past Sheffield United in their latest game. Before we get into City, I feel that you're going to go against what a lot of other people are thinking here, because my question was going to be if the contenders blew their chance to actually pull away while City were away on Club World Cup duty, and obviously where there has been some slip-ups from City. But I feel that you think there's still a lot more to come of this story in the title race.
I do, because I just haven't seen Manchester City. I mean, when were we talking about Manchester City in a way that we did last season, the season before, and the season before that? And maybe it takes time. Maybe some of the injuries, obviously, when he recovers players like Kevin De Bruyne, who's missed so much of the season. I mean, let's not forget that I think he got injured, first game of the season. So I need to see that. I think, of course, he's going to be wonderful as well, but that may take time. Who knows? Erling Haaland's going to be back. And yes, everything is pointing towards the fact that advantage hasn't been taken. But, even before the season, I mean, just as much as we can say, well, this is Manchester City now to run away with, fair play. But I mean, look, Arsenal before this last game that they lost, they were 10 points worse off. Maybe it's Manchester City that hasn't taken advantage of any of that. Think about it. And Arsenal is still there, and they were 10 points worse off than last season. Maybe for some of the reasons that I've mentioned, that they had to cope with a big competition that is the Champions League. So why did Manchester City didn't take advantage? And by the way, Manchester City is only 2 points worse off. So you see my thinking here. That's why, and there's a reason for that. But because Manchester City have not been at their best, can they get there? Yes, but we need to see it first. And that's why I think with the likes of Aston Villa, with even Newcastle, who are losing games, but they'll get their players back. Spurs, which I hope you're going to talk to me about, because, for example, I feel that if they have everybody available, they're better than, say, Arsenal. They are. They're deeper. They're better. They have game changers all over the pitch, right? So you have Spurs, you have Villa, who are surprising, who are going to cause problems. Of course, you have West Ham that's re-emerging a little bit. And I just think that at this stage, those teams are capable of causing Manchester City problems from time to time. So let's wait and see. But I'm not willing to say what I said last season, where there was, as you know, zero doubt at any given point for me that City were going to win it. Even when Arsenal were like 12 points ahead, I still didn't think they were going to do it. We're not at that point yet with Manchester City.
Okay, so just because it's fun, just because it's a new year, if today you had to say 1, 2, 3 of where the three teams of the top three finish in the Premier League, who would you say?
At this moment, if I had to, let's just on the assumption that teams will get most of the players back, I would say at this stage, in a very tight race, would be Manchester City, Liverpool, Spurs, and Arsenal.
Oh, wow. Well, that does lead us on to our next conversation very, very nicely, because I was just going to say that after the wins for Villa and Spurs, who's finishing higher of these two teams? And obviously, you're thinking Spurs.
Yeah. Why wouldn't I think? Look, when everybody was available, remember who for the longest time was at the top of the league? It was Spurs, right? I mean, they were up there. I mean, look what's happening. I mean, everybody can talk here, Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool, about missing players, but look at some of the quality that they're missing. But, even what's more important is without those players, look how everybody else has upped their game for Spurs. And just the fact that they go after teams and how they score. I mean, think about it. I mean, Maddison was absolutely outstanding. Of course, he's a great player, right? Van de Ven, what a defender. I mean, Romero's been in and out because of injuries and suspensions. You have Emerson Royale and Davies playing there, and they're doing a pretty good job, right? Udogi is great. I mean, he continues to do what he does. They have one of the best goalkeepers in the league, because we keep talking about these players. What's going on at Arsenal? Raya, great with feet. Ramsdale should have been playing. Robert Sanchez, Onana, all these goalkeepers that are coming in the league are supposed to come in and take their team to the next level because of their abilities in how to play with goal. And you look at Vicario, and he's absolutely outstanding. Look at Richarlison as of late. Look what he does. Kulusevski, incredible. Look what he's done with Lo Celso. I mean, I really, a few weeks back, I forgot about Lo Celso. Look at Bentancur, again, in and out, but comes back and immediately, remember, I forget which goal it was. I think maybe the first goal, when he anticipated the mistake and set it up himself. You know how I feel about Bentancur. Many fans in England forgot who he is and how he plays, but he's absolutely outstanding. So you look at this team, and all of a sudden you look how deep they are in talent when everybody comes back. And as I've mentioned here before on another show, Human-Son is going to be missed, but it's almost as if they're ready to play without key players. And key players, and Richarlison, as I said, in good form. So I've always liked Ange. There's been some question marks because they're going to come inevitably, because I mean, you're going to lose some games because you miss so many players. But every time we kind of think that they're going to fall away, look, they're a point behind Arsenal. Speaking of Arsenal's depth, aside from Yuri and Timber, I mean, they have pretty much everybody available, don't they? In fact, throughout the season. And Spurs, I think they're a deeper team than Arsenal. I really do.
Wow. So things have definitely changed in terms of where you're seeing teams finishing just now after what we've seen over this Christmas break.
Simply because Spurs proved, because Spurs proved to me that even when they miss so many players, the way of playing, the attitude of the manager is not changing, and everybody's thriving and getting better under that. Just as we question, the likes of, I don't know, Richarlison, he's coming good. I didn't even mention Brennan Johnson, who, slowly but surely is becoming a very, very important part of that team. And that's part of that depth. So, I mean, look, when everybody comes back, I think Ange is going to have a headache in who to play and how and where to play them. I don't even, Papa Sarr scored, got injured again. But I think at Spurs these days, it's like, okay, somebody gets injured, no problem. Next person comes in and we keep on trucking.
And yeah, all buying into the same philosophy as well under Big Ange. So it's time to talk top transfer targets. We're picking the top teams, historically the top teams as well. Can put some names out to you. But I suppose you can have a bit of an outlier as well if you want, because it's a dream January transfer position, a name that immediately improves the top Premier League sides. We're going to go with Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Man United, Chelsea and Spurs. Let me just throw a few names out to you just so it's in your head, and then we'll see where you're thinking. Ivan Toney, Victor Osimhen, Jadon Sancho could be on the move somewhere else, Calvin Phillips. These are some names coming up. Todibo of Nice, Seru Girassi of Stuttgart, of course, Conor Gallagher of Chelsea. Just a few names to put out there. Let me give you first Liverpool, dream position, dream player for this January transfer window.
Kylian Mbappe, look, the thing about, I know it's nearly impossible, but it keeps, this rumor won't die. And you know what happens when it won't die? And Real Madrid obviously going to be favorites, but they better pull that trigger soon somehow. With Liverpool, obviously the big issue is financially. I don't know how Liverpool and FSG would ever go for something like that. Even his salary, right? There would be a long line to Jurgen Klopp's office from everybody else on that team. But this rumor just won't die, and Liverpool is one of the best teams in the world historically and now, and I think they should be in for players like that, even if it's just pretending that they want it, right? They should be out there saying, yeah, if it's workable, we get him. But being more realistic, I don't think they'll get anybody that's going to immediately change the way they play, but they have a player that I think is very, very much needed positionally, and a player that I think if he even plays 3 or 4 good games, those 3 or 4 games could decide the title, and that's Thiago Alcantara, because it's crying for a player like that in that midfield. Liverpool doesn't have it. The Liverpool can use a distributor, a visionary, somebody that can change the point of attack, right? Endo's not going to do that. Yeah, he's been doing well. He can disrupt play, but he can't play a long ball for 30 yards to save his life. Aside from that Fulham goal, he's not a player that can strike the ball from distance. Defensive minded, fair play, and he's done much better than I thought. But that midfield needs Thiago Alcantara, and supposedly, although we've heard that, he may be back at the end of January. But I think if you get him at the right point of the season, if it's March, April, and he gives you that quality that he has, even for 3 or 4 or 5 games, that may be just enough. So recover Thiago Alcantara at the moment.
Okay. Arsenal, striker?
Yeah, Ivan Toney makes sense. I don't know how long it's going to take him, to pick up speed and get back to it. I know he's been training for a long time. I don't think it's an issue. He knows the league. He knows how to score in this league. So I think it seems that Arsenal are serious about him. And I think he changes the mentality of that team, right? All of a sudden, that depth and maybe, a lot of times it's just the narrative. That's the worst thing, because players listen to it. And so I think if that's possible, then I go for it.
Manchester City.
Manchester City, nothing. There's no need. They won't do it. It'll be, a young player that's going to be integrated into the team next year when one or two others leave. If you look at that team and that squad, and you look at the players like De Bruyne coming back, John Stones, because he really hasn't gotten going, Erling Haaland. There's so much there. There's enough there to win the Premier League and the Champions League, of course. It's just the formula hasn't been there just yet. The partnership in the back, not just centrally, but all over the place, with the exception of Kyle Walker. But no changes needed. None will happen.
Okay. Manchester United.
I mean, just about everywhere. As I said, this is nothing that they do in January is going to change drastically what Manchester United are and what they will be. This is a long-term plan that I hope is being put together, because, I mean, which player would really want to come to Manchester United? A player of note, a seasoned player, and I'm not talking of the likes of Varane, Casemiro, that age, but a very, very good player that would see this situation as good right now, to jump in with so much criticism. I think it's going to be difficult. I also think that Man United at this stage would be taken advantage of. If you really go in for a big name, they will greatly overpay because they're desperate. So, I mean, throwing any name it's useless. I think if they get anybody, is thinking with future in mind.
Do you think, just to carry on with that Manchester United one, when there are some big names, do you think that agents are looking at this type of thing and advising their players, or do you think the players are put off, or is the name of Manchester United and the magnitude of the club still big enough that it still has the prestige to be able to go there?
It may be big enough. Everything that I've said, I mean it, but I'm glad that you kind of followed up with that, because there is hope, because, there's finding an organization. I mean, remember, forget the players, forget the way they play, forget Ten Hag. The issues were deeper. There was no structure above, right? There was nobody there that you would trust and say, things are going to change. You'd say, it's going to be more of the same. Who's making the decisions? Who's buying the players? Why are they buying the players? Is there a plan in place? So with Ratcliffe now and a significant investment, right? I think that this may change, but I still think that this is going to be more for the future. But I think, as much as I've said that who would want to come, I think if the agents and the players have a clear plan from a new man in charge, on the sporting side, say this will change, then I can see some maybe, just maybe, thinking, okay, I'm going to trust that. But is it going to happen in January? That's the big question mark, right? Because a lot of the paperwork hasn't gone through just yet, because this is a massive investment that's got to clear not just the Premier League, but obviously the stock market and everything else that goes with it. So I think that's going to impact the January transfer window, right? I mean, if anything happens, you're going to wait late in the window, and that in itself, as we know, I mean, if you think that, as I do, that Manchester United are desperate, it's going to be even more desperate. So why pull the trigger on that, and why not wait until January? I mean, until the summer.
Chelsea.
Oh, center back. Quality center back. I mean, Thiago Silva's still doing great, but I mean, that's a problem. White players in front. Yeah, I just think time with Chelsea is time. Don't you think? I mean, would I like to? I mean, they're not going to go after a new number 9 in this window, aren't they? I mean, I think Jackson deserves probably a little bit more time. I do think that some of these young players will start performing a little bit better. Another win, I think a consistency can go a long way here, where, to follow up on this Luton win, finally, maybe they go on a 2 or 3 game winning streak. They've bought so much. I mean, how much more can they possibly buy? Creativity in that midfield, I suppose. That's one player that, the one area. The name that they've gone after, and I forgot, and I think it's worth mentioning because Arsenal could use a player like that. I think to a degree, Liverpool could use a player like that. And the name of that player for Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool is Michael Olise. On that right hand side, you tell me. I know Liverpool are loaded, but I mean, Mo Salah, there's always that talk that, how maybe he'll leave, maybe he'll go elsewhere. You'd like to have a player that's capable. I mean, Saka could use a player that challenges him, right? Olise could play probably on both sides, but part of Arsenal's issue is that there's no time to ever rest these players. And Chelsea, I think, can use him as well. Olise out of Crystal Palace. I know he signed a new contract, but Palace would always sell. So this name, almost for any team, right? I mean, United could very well use him.
It's your dream transfer list. So
I would have Olise on the dream list for any of the teams that you've just mentioned, which is basically all top teams in the Premier League.
okay, but the last one is, I do still have to mention it for whatever you would say, is Spurs.
Spurs, a center back. I mean, they do need it because I mean it's worrisome. I mean, Van de Ven will be fine. I think this is freakish. Romero, though, you worry about him with the injuries and suspension, his temperament. That's a bit of an issue. I think that's an area that they need. Conor Gallagher. I mean, I don't think he wants to leave Chelsea. I do think they need somebody more creative there, but I also understand why Ange would want a warrior in that midfield, another warrior. I know they have them in Sarr and Bissouma, but he's a worker bee, and I think in terms of pressing, counter pressing, he could be used to allow, say, James Maddison to do even more in terms of going forward, not worry in what's happening in behind, right? So if you want to be playing all competitions, I can see that. So I'll buy into that rumor. I don't know why Chelsea would do it. I'm sure that Conor Gallagher doesn't want to do it, but we all know how everyone is close to the financial fair play. That's one thing that we haven't mentioned with almost all these teams, that there's not a lot of wiggle room. So possible.
Yeah, well, his name obviously came up because we see him regularly, but he is still linked with a move away. But obviously, we see many names when it comes to the rumor.
And I kind of get that, and I don't want to say it about him because he works so hard. He's such an honest player. He's got all kinds of abilities, but Conor Gallagher still feels to me like a Crystal Palace type of player, right? And nothing against Crystal Palace, but even Spurs, he's a worker. I mean, you give him a task, and he'll give you some extra, right? But I don't know if this is the sort of player that will open the doors for everybody. He is not a prolific goal scorer, as we all know, but there's an absolute role on just about any team for him. That's why I'm a little bit surprised that Chelsea will consider it. But again, you have to remember, after spending so much money, Chelsea, and feeling that they still need to add to it, I can see how they may have to sell. And he's going to fetch good 40, 50 million pounds. So it kind of, in a roundabout way, makes sense.
Still only 23 as well. But we are into 2024. And thank you so much for being with us for the first PL Express of 2024. We'll be back next week to do it all over again. See you then.